Hi, everybody. In a previous video, I pointed out that having students read out loud in class is often used in ways that don't actually increase engagement or comprehension and can actually be harmful. But if we change the way we use it, round robin reading can actually improve students' confidence in their reading ability and support them in stretching out of their comfort zone and taking risks. However, having students read out loud is significantly different from teachers reading out loud to students. A 2016 study in Educational Review explored the many ways that teachers read to students in class throughout different disciplines. Most commonly, teachers would read instructions for assignments to students as a way of guiding their attention. It was slightly less common for teachers to read to students to improve and check on comprehension. Very few teachers read aloud to students to foster their appreciation for the text. A wealth of research, some of it linked below in the description, indicates that once children start being able to read for themselves, parents stop reading to them. Teachers reading aloud to students in school continues for a few years, then tapers off significantly. Now, correlation is not the same as causation, so I want to be really careful about the conclusions that I draw. And I would love to hear your perspectives on them down in the comments, you guys. You know I'm a sucker for that. So here's what we know, based on observed and reported data. Teachers read less to students at higher grade levels. Parents focus more on helping with homework and less on reading together for enjoyment as children get over. Reading at higher grade levels focuses on getting the right answer and demonstrating appropriate comprehension. Student gains in reading ability decrease as grade levels increase, and the gap between strong readers and poor readers increases with grade level. Students who read below grade level have reduced motivation to read and are less willing to do so. Weak readers in high school, quote, often feel humiliated, stressed, and unappreciated, end quote. They're more likely to drop out of school. Students reported less perceived value in improving their reading skill as grade level increased. This research demonstrates that students who have difficulty with reading face increased psychological and social challenges as they get older. This correlates with the decrease in being read to. And while it would be poor reasoning to say that the decline in reading to students directly causes a decline in reading ability, there is widespread research that connects the amount of time spent practicing a skill with increased ability in that skill. Thus, the best way to learn to read better is to read more. But for weak readers, that's an activity that's associated with frustration, embarrassment, and failure. In contrast, reading to students, even those who are too old, can draw on memories of being cared for, and in combination with a story that really hooks them, can reawaken an interest in reading. It's not that high school students should never read silently or independently, but that there's little reason not to read to them at all. Granted, there's not a lot of research that shows an actual connection between being read to and increased reading skill. And because being read to is something our society associates with small children and classroom time is already stretched thin, there's a good chance that reading aloud to high schoolers during class will not be strongly supported by the surrounding community. So it's probably wise to limit the amount of time you allocate to this activity. But that's okay. If you do it right, it works like a free sample. Just reel them in. The truth is, there isn't enough time in one class to really get students to read as much as they need to in order to significantly improve their reading ability. Especially if they're slower readers, it'll take using time outside of school to really make a difference. That's why increasing their interest in reading for themselves is so crucial. Teachers can do this in several different ways, and I will demonstrate with several different books. So the first one that I'm going to share with you is the one that really got me started on this at all. Fighting Words was a book that I'd gotten from the library, and I was reading independently with students as they were reading their own individually chosen books. And I decided to use it as a model for it being okay to stop reading a book. And so we finished our reading time, and I talked to the class about, and I said, I've just started this new book, and I don't know if I'm going to finish it. It's not, I mean, you can see it's not a real long book, and it's not that it's too hard for me, but which are both valid reasons. There are many reasons that you might choose not to finish a book. In this case, it's emotionally challenging. The main character is 10 years old, and it's pretty clear that she's gone through some really bad stuff. And maybe it was just because they didn't want to go back to work, but they said, well, just read us a little bit of it. It's okay. So I'll read you the first chapter, just like I did for them. Chapter 1. My new tattoo is covered by a Band-Aid, but halfway through recess, the Band-Aid falls off. I'm hanging my winter coat on the hook in our 4th grade classroom when my teacher, Miss Devante, walks by and gasps. So I stopped there and I said, now that first sentence, I'd actually read you two without thinking because I was into it. The first sentence really grabbed me. I know it made me notice it. I said, what did you notice? Well, they noticed the same thing I did. Somebody has a tattoo, but they also have recess and a Band-Aid. So, we had some guesses. Maybe it's one of those, lick and stick tattoos or whatever. But either way, that incongruity makes us want to read more. So we talked about that a little bit. I said, okay, let's go on. Let's find out. So the teacher says, Della, she says, is that a tattoo? I hold my wrist up to show it to her. It's an ampersand, I say, careful to pronounce the word correctly. I know that, Miss Devante says. Is it real? It's so real it still hurts, and the skin around it is red and puffy. Yes, ma'am, I say. She shakes her head and mutters. I am not one of her favorite students. I may be one of her least favorites. I don't care. I love, love, love my ampersand tattoo. I am 10 years old. I'm going to tell you the whole story. Some parts are hard, so I'll leave those for later. I'll start with the easy stuff. My name is Delicious Nevaeh Roberts. Yeah, I know, with a first name like that. Why don't I just go by Nevaeh? I never tell anybody that my name is Delicious, but it's down in my school records, and teachers usually blurt it out on the first day. I've had a lot of first dates recently. If I can get it in before the teacher says Delicious out loud, I'll say, I go by Della. I'll say that anyhow. I answer to Della, not Delicious. Thank you. But it's easier if nobody ever hears Delicious. Once a boy tried to lick me to see if I was delicious. I kicked him in the... Suki says I can't say that word. Not if I want anybody to read my story. Everybody I know uses bad words all the time, just not written down. Anyhow, I kicked him right in the zipper of his blue jeans. Let's say it like that, and it was me that got in trouble. It's always the girl that gets in trouble. It's usually me. Suki didn't care. She said, you stick up for yourself, Della. Don't you take no crap from nobody. Can I say crap in a story? Anyhow, she didn't say crap. She said something worse. A lot worse. Suki says whenever I want to use a bad word, I can say snow or snowflake or snowy. I kicked him right in the snow. Yeah, that works. Okay, so back to me. Delicious Nevaeh Roberts. The Nevaeh is heaven spelled backwards, of course. There's usually at least one other girl in my class called Nevaeh. It's a real popular name around here. I don't know why. It sounds dumb to me. Heaven backwards? What was my mother thinking? Probably she wasn't. That's just the truth. My mother is incarcerated. Her parental rights have been terminated. That just happened lately. Nobody bothered to before, even though by the time she gets out of prison, I'll be old enough to vote. I can't remember her, except one tiny bit like a scene from a movie. Suki says she was no better than a hamster when it came to being a mother, and hamsters sometimes eat their babies. It was always Suki who took care of me. Mostly it still is. Suki is my sister. She's 16. I'm still in the easy part of the story, if you can believe that. Suki's full name is Suki Grace Roberts. Suki isn't short for anything, though it sounds like it should be. And that Roberts part, well, that's our mother's last name too. Suki and me, we don't know who our fathers are, except they were probably different people, and neither one of them was Clifton, thank God. Suki swears that's true. I believe her. Can you say God in a story? Because I wasn't taking his name in vain right there. I really am thanking God. Whatever God there is, that Clifton ain't my daddy. Suki used to have a photograph of Mama from her trial. White pale face, sores on it, black teeth from the meth, pale white lanky hair. Suki says she bleached her hair, but whatever, you can see it's got no texture to it. Hangs like string. Suki's hair is soft and shiny, dark brown except when she dyes it black. It's a prettier version of Mama's hair. And her eyes look like Mama's too. My hair has bounce. It tangles up all the time. My eyes are lighter than Suki's and Mama's. Suki's skin is skim milk white, so pale her belly almost looks blue. She burns bright red when she goes out in the sun. My skin's browner, and I don't ever need no sunscreen, no matter what Suki says. So while me and Suki don't know a single thing about our fathers, we're guessing they weren't the same. Which is good, right? Because if the same guy stuck around long enough to be daddy to both me and Suki, he should have stayed and helped us out of this mess. Otherwise, he'd be a snowman. What Suki thinks, and me too, is that Mama never told either of our daddies that she was going to have their baby, so it's not really their fault they weren't around. It's possible they were great guys, fantastic in just about every way, except, of course, for hanging out with our mother, who was always a hot mess. Suki and me gave up on Mama a long time ago. Had to. Not only is she incarcerated, she's had what's called a psychotic break soon as she got to prison. It comes from the meth, and it means she's bad crazy, in a permanent way. She wouldn't likely even recognize us were we to walk into her cell, not that we could since she's incarcerated in Kansas somewhere, which we have no current means of getting to. She doesn't write or call because she can't write or call, not as she would make any sense if she did. And it would never occur to her to do so. She's forgotten all about us. I'm sorry about that, real sorry, but it's nothing I could change. We are still on the easy parts of the story. And that's how chapter 1 ends. And so I stopped and I said, she's gone through some really hard stuff, and we're still on the easy parts of the story. And if we're still on the easy parts of the story now, I don't know if I'm going to make it through this book. And I said, but I want you to know that it's okay not to finish a book. And my students were like, no, you have to read us this book, Miss Cole. So I flew through the rest of the book during planning and like the after school, and I finished it up. And then I went to the librarian, and the principal was actually in there with her. And I was like, look, I'm in a little bit of a pickle. Not a big pickle, just a little pickle, baby gherkin. And I'd like to do this. I think this would be meaningful for my students, and I've read through it. There's no, swearing. There's minimal violence. There's, some kid fights. There's references to drugs and abuse. But it doesn't glorify it. There's nothing explicitly spelled out. And, it's a middle grade book. So it's not like it's, inappropriate. I said, but I think this could be something that's really relevant for students in a poverty-stricken area, some of whom have moved from one parent to another, to aunts and uncles and things like that. Some of our students either have been through things like this themselves, or they know someone who has. And I think this presents it not in a positive light, but presents it in a way that shows that they're not alone. So we talked about it, and I ended up reading this to my students, and just in the time that they were coming back from lunch, 5, maybe 10 minutes a day. And they were really attentive. It seemed to be meaningful. And I was very clear to tell them, you don't have to listen. Earbuds, this might make you uncomfortable. You don't have to listen to this. But it was just a time for us to share a story together. And it was really meaningful. So I want to share a little bit from some other books that can do some other things. This next one is Bloody Jack. It's so good. This is my go-to book for when I have a reluctant reader. This one and Guts by Gary Paulson. But Guts is back at the school. This one is here. So we'll go with this. Just the prologue. My name is Jackie Faber, and in London I was born. But no, I wasn't born with that name. Well, the Faber part, yes. The Jackie part, no. But they call me Jackie now, and it's fine with me. They also call me Jack and Jacko and Jock and the Jackaro. And it's true, I've been called Bloody Jack a few times, but that wasn't all my fault. Mostly, though, they just call me Jackie. That wasn't my name, though, back on that dark day, when my poor dad died of the pestilence, and the men dragged him out of our rooms and down the stairs, his poor head hanging between his shoulders and his poor feet bouncing on the stairs, and me all sobbing and blubbering, Mum no help, she being sick, and my little sister, too, as well. Back then, my name was Mary. So, of course, I want to know more about why her name became Jack, and especially Bloody Jack, and why she isn't called Mary anymore, and, what happened and where she got to be. Another thing that can be useful is an anthology. I love anthologies. Like, this is a collection of short stories. It's called Under My Hat. And I love them because you rarely get an entire one where everyone is a banger. But chances are pretty good that at least a couple of them are going to be good. And this one, I think, is one of the few that I liked every story, and most of them were amazing. It starts off with a story called Stray Magic by, I'm sorry, author, Diana Peterfreund. Peterfreund, I think. You can't have this job unless you love animals. But if you love animals, it's hard to have this job. We're a no-kill shelter, but all that means is that there are some animals who are stuck here for life, wasting away in their little cages. And sometimes we're too full, and we have to turn animals away, knowing they'll be taken to the county shelter, where they'll be put down after 72 hours. 3 days. That's how long they get at county. 3 days for their owners to find them if they're lost, which, trust me, they usually aren't. Or for them to find a new home. Jeremy, my buddy over there, sends me likely candidates for adoption whenever we have space. Good dogs. Adorable puppies that all have the potential to be great companions if they just get the chance to try. I don't know what he's thinking of his latest one, though. There gotta be some kind of mix-up. Jeremy's voicemail described her as a young golden retriever mix, but when I arrive at the shelter, the crate waiting for me outside the back door does not have a golden inside. What it contains is the most bedraggled, patchy-coated, pathetic creature I have ever seen. The dog's 12 if she's a day. What's left of her fur is stained and dingy white. Her eyes are bloodshot, her chocolate and pink nose is dry and cracked, and some kind of mite's been gnawing on her floppy ears, and she's got a big old infected scrape on her belly, oozing pus into the remaining mats of her hair. Adoptable? Not in this state. I wonder what Jeremy was thinking sending along a hopeless case like her. I grabbed a leash and opened up the crate door. So you're the one they caught wandering out on the highway, huh? Highway dogs are the worst. This one was probably dumped by her owner because she was too old or because she was diagnosed with some terminal illness and they didn't have the heart or the money to watch her get put down. Happens all the time out here. I guess people just delude themselves into thinking their pets are going to live out their days in a nice country farmhouse. People think this is the land of milk and honey for unwanted dogs. Wrong. It's the land of roadkill and pound euthanasia. The dog crushes itself against the far corner of the crate. Ugh, typical. I see a dozen cases like this a week. Usually they're terrified, and they have a right to be. I'm just going to take you inside and get you some nice kibble. I grab her by the scruff of the neck and tug her out into the light. Darn it, if she's not a golden retriever. I am so shocked I let go of her and she shoots off. Or she tries to, anyhow. As I know this trick quite well. I snatch up the end of the leash before it disappears, and her flight stops short. She whimpers as I haul her back, and I blink my eyes to clear them because she's the old white dog again. Strangest thing ever. She slumps and stops struggling as I lead her inside. The dog in the cages start up the second I flick on the lights. I lead the newcomer to crate 19. Welcome to Shelter from the Storm. I'm your host, Malou. She beelines for the blanket in the darkest corner of the kennel and curls up, resting her head on her paws and looking at me dejectedly. Those big brown eyes are just about the saddest I have ever seen. And I work in a pet shelter, so that is saying something. Must be the eyes that got to Jeremy, though he's a pretty tough sell after 8 months volunteering at county. He fits there, though. He wants to be a vet, and they've already taught him how to spay kittens. I just do this to get my dog fixed. We can't have pets at home since Carson's allergic. At least that's what Cynthia, my stepmother, says, but my baby half-brother never sneezes when I come home from the kennel covered in fur. I appealed to my dad, but since he's gone most of the time, he lets Cynthia have the final say in all home matters. So if I want to play with puppies, I have to do it at the shelter. I guess it's better this way. I know if she'd let me, I'd bring them all home. You're going to be fine here, I say to the new dog in that high, soft voice they all like. No, I'm not. I'm doomed. She might as well have spoken the thoughts out loud. I swear some days I can read their thoughts. Not that most of them have thoughts other than, play with me, pet me, feed me. Dogs aren't simple, but their needs are. They don't ask for much, and even then, most people let them down. I know what will make you feel better. Doubt it. Some kibble. I wonder what brand Libby, the shelter manager, managed to find on sale at the supermarket this week. The food here is not great, but it's better than nothing, which is what a lot of these dogs are used to getting. I fill a bowl for the newcomer, then start the routine of changing papers and feeding the others. I let the socialized ones out to run around the yard for a while I process our latest arrival. Libby says they adopt better with a cute name rather than something like Old White Dog or Crate 19. I check on the new dog who hasn't eaten her kibble yet. Sometimes they come in starving and will wolf down whatever they can get. And sometimes they come in too scared or depressed to eat, especially if they think you're watching. What would be a good name for you? I tap my fingers on my mouth, considering. My name is Goneril. The dog doesn't lift her head, but her eyes are glued to me. Pearl? I ask. Something stately, I think. This is not a goofball dog. Goneril. The thought is more insistent this time. Goneril Aurelia Boudica Usault, to be exact. I write Gabby on the chart and hang it from the hook at the top of the crate. The dog lifts her head. Wait, what? Gabby? I swear, sometimes it's like they're really talking to you. You should have seen some of the names they gave you guys before I got here. Really cheesy stuff. Cuddles. Pumpkin. You probably would have ended up as Snowball. I guess it helps to get you adopted, but you're too dignified for a name like that, aren't you? No matter what you're looking like now. Wait, you can see me? The real me? She stands and bats her paw against the bars. You thirsty? I kneel to undo the crate door and grab her water dish. Gabby throws herself against it, but I hold it closed. See? I know the tricks. You understand me! She sits in her whip-like tail, flops once on the concrete floor. I let go of the door. There is something seriously weird going on with this dog. And you see the real me, too. Gabby stands now and moves into the thin shaft of sunlight that slices across the back corner of the crate. I fall back on my butt. This is not real. There's the old white dog, but in flickers like a broken film strip. I can see bits of golden retriever hanging in scraps. I watch in shock as the dog noses her golden flank back in place. As soon as she moves it, it slips again. It's the glamour. It's fading. Every spell my master put on me is breaking. The glamour? I whisper, hardly believing the words coming out of my mouth. I am answering a dog because she's talking to me. Gabby bounds back over to the door. Her tail comes out from between her legs, and her eyes aren't quite as filled with despair. What are you, Gabby? I ask. Goneril. Goneril? I'm a dog. A talking dog. A talking dog who sometimes looks like a young, well-groomed golden retriever and sometimes doesn't. I'm my master's dog. His special dog. Poor deluded pooch. They all think they're special until they're dumped on the side of the road. And I've lost him. You mean you're lost? You wandered off? No! 1 second I was in the car with him and then I wasn't. Highway dump. I knew it. I lost him. I might have just lost my mind. How are you doing this? The dog, Goneril, snorts. I told you, it's a glamour. I have all these pieces of magic I got from my master, but now that we're separated, they're falling to pieces. I crawl toward the kennel, too flabbergasted to speak. The dogs nearby are transfixed, too. None of the usual barking, whining, scratching, or even snoozing. Whatever's happening here, they're witnesses, too. At least the dogs prove I'm not hallucinating. Goneril continues. When all the magic's gone, I'll die. All right, so the next one is actually a picture book. Just a picture book. You might be familiar with it. It's called The Arrival, and it's by Shantan. And this is a book that I would probably only do if I had a small enough class where they could gather up close, because one of the amazing things about this is just the level of detail in it. This is a book where it's all about the pictures. We talk in my class about what story is and how story can be told without words, and the challenges that creates for a storyteller. We watch some ballets and we talk about symbolism and meaning in things like lighting and movement, and how the dancers as actors are able to convey the story, and how the music helps them with that, and the movement and the choreography and all of these things. So here we have pictures. And looking at the expressions on the faces is important. The whole way through the book, there are no words. But at the same time, the pictures themselves are able to tell the story. You can tell that this is a story of separation, especially here. See the hands? I'm jumping ahead just a little bit. And so here we do have some words, and it's important that we don't understand the words. We are in the place of the character who is making a journey, finding all these strange things, these words he can't understand, this speech that he can't understand, these animals and people that he doesn't understand. And so we journey through this with him, experiencing this lack of understanding in the same manner that he does, because there aren't any words and we're trying to figure out what all this means, just as he is. So this is a great way to talk to students about how we create meaning, what we expect from stories and things like that. So even though it's a picture book, it's really, I think, a book that's good for older students. All right, last one. And this one is nonfiction, The Pleasure of Finding Things Out by Richard Feynman. So it's sort of a collection of the best short works of Richard P. Feynman. And if you don't know who he is, look it up. So the first one, which I'm going to read you just a part of, is from a transcript of an interview that he made for the BBC. The beauty of a flower. I have a friend who's an artist, and he's sometimes taken a view which I don't agree with very well. He'll hold up a flower and say, "Look how beautiful this is," and I'll agree, I think. And he says, "You see, I, as an artist, can see how beautiful this is, but you as a scientist, oh no, take this all apart and it becomes a dull thing." First of all, the beauty that he sees is available to any other people, including me, I believe, although I might not be quite as refined aesthetically as he is, but I can appreciate the beauty of a flower. At the same time, I see more about the flower than he does. I can imagine the cells in there, the complicated actions inside, which also have their own beauty. I mean, it's not just beauty at this dimension of 1 centimeter. There's also beauty at a smaller dimension, the inner structure, the processes, the fact that the colors in the flower evolved in order to attract insects, to pollinate it, is interesting. It means that insects can see color. It also adds a question. Does this aesthetic sense also exist in other animals? Why is it aesthetic? All kinds of interesting questions, which shows that science knowledge only adds to the excitement and mystery and awe and beauty of a flower. It adds. I don't understand how it subtracts. So one of the things I like about this is it's nonfiction, and he is a scientist, but at the same time, it's in little pieces. So it makes for great short readings, and it's not just equations. It explores science in the way of, normal people, and it has that enthusiasm and passion, which I want students to see. I'm going to put that one down. I'm going to put some other suggestions down in the description. Some of these are just books that I have. Like, if I was going to read books to students, I might try some of these. On Writing by Stephen King, The House of the Spirits by Isabel Allende, A Long Way Gone by Ishmael Bea, The Princess Bride, which is in my favorite books, by William Goldman, Anne of Green Gables, one of my longtime favorites by Lucy Montgomery. Ivanhoe, Walter Scott. Classic. Did not think I'd like it. I liked it. The Fifth Season by N.K. Jemisin. Alana by Tamora Pierce, and The Shadow of the Wind by Carlos Ruiz Zafón. That's just a few. I'll probably add a couple more. At any rate, I would strongly encourage you to do shared reading with some of the people who are important to you. Just like you sit down and watch TV together or movies, you go out with friends and talk about the things that interest you, you can do the same thing with books. And we have book clubs, but it's not quite the same thing. The practice of shared reading, I think, is one that we don't really engage in, because it does take a fair amount of time to get through an entire book together, if it's more than just, say, a picture book. But it's something that as a shared experience brings us closer together. And I think that that's something that can be important to anybody. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. Don't forget to leave me a comment. Bye for now.